My name is Chloe Wilson. I'm a senior in the Integrated Marketing Communications and the magazine program here at Ole Miss. And it is my pleasure to introduce Brian Hart Hoffman, the Executive Vice President and Chief Creative Officer at Hoffman Media, where he oversees the editorial development and brand direction for all publications, as well as the PR and the special events divisions. This man does it all.
Thank you very much, and good morning. It's an honor to be here, surrounded by so many colleagues that I respect, that I followed careers and companies for a long time. So being in your company and being able to present today is an honor, as well as to the students here at Ole Miss. I appreciate allowing a Birmingham, Alabama resident to be back in Ole Miss just 4 days after we took a beating. So maybe it's easier for me to be here after the loss, but so roll tide anyway. I know I had to say it, hotty toddy too. So, so in the creative side of the business, we hear a lot of statistics, and you hear a lot about, there were good questions this morning about editorial and advertising, and what is the relationship like? And I'm here to tell you from Hoffman Media's perspective, creativity affects all areas of the business. We are striving to train our editorial team members to have more dialogue with advertising. Our group publisher is also very committed that advertising is not going to tell editorial what to do. So we have a little bit of a two-way dialogue in place, but we can talk more about that as we get into the presentation. But today I wanted to talk about guiding creativity. I am the Chief Creative Officer, so I have the pleasure to work on the creative and editorial side of the business. And I want to take a quote from inspiredmag.com that kind of hit me as a profound truth about creativity in our industry. And it is, what is creativity? It is not something that we can easily define. As an illustrator, a designer, a semi-professional musician, or any role that has a creative contribution to an organization, the problem of defining creativity has always been one that I've struggled with. The spark of creative ideas, certainly, it's not something that we can touch, although we definitely enjoy the success once we have the result. And yet our global society depends and thrives upon creativity. As a human society, creativity is one of our most valuable resources. So we'll get into the presentation, and a lot of people ask, well, what in the world is creativity? First, I want to introduce you to Hoffman Media, and then we'll talk a little bit more. Wrong video. Is their sound? Can someone?
What began as a small special interest publishing company in 1983, Hoffman Media has grown into a leading company in the cooking and entertaining markets. Founded by Phyllis Hoffman DiPiano, the company today publishes 9 magazines reaching over 1 million readers with its editorial focus in the travel, entertaining, cooking, and decorating markets. Boasting a 30-70 ad-to-edit ratio, advertisers find their ads surrounded by excellent editorial content in the pages of our titles. Hoffman Media delivers content where the consumer wants it and at just the right time. Between delivery of traditional media, Hoffman bridges the gap by providing additional content via social media, which in turn makes consumers aware of fresh content across our websites. Our consumer titles are Taste of the South, Southern Lady, Cooking with Paula Deen, The Cottage Journal, Louisiana Cookin', Tea Time, Victoria, Entertain, Decorate, Celebrate. and fresh style. Hoffman Media has a commitment to excellence in every page of the magazines. Our magazines and products are voices of authority, produce knowledge, quality, and serve as inspiration and instruction for enriched daily living.
All right, so that's an introduction to Hoffman Media, and at this point I get to tell you I'm not just the Chief Creative Officer, I am the son of our founder, Phyllis. And so I work in a family business, and I'm always asked the question, where did you work before Hoffman Media? And in the magazine publishing world, I have to tell you, nowhere. I was 2 years old when our company was founded, so I say I've been at Hoffman Media 31 years, and I'm 33 years old. It's a pretty good career, right? Thank you. So growing up in the family business, we have definitely had a connection to our readers from my mom, Phyllis. All of our magazines were founded as hobbies or extensions of her personality. So in our business, we definitely try to first and foremost connect with readers on an emotional level that starts with a relationship. Well, how do you form relationships now? We have social media, we have websites, we have blogs, we have the print publications, we have a lot of different avenues that we can connect with our readers. But the first thing that we want them to know about is our family and what makes Hoffman Media unique. We have 100 employees in Birmingham, Alabama, and 2 employees in New Orleans, Louisiana. And we have 8 test kitchens. We have 7 full-time photographers. We have full-time editorial teams. We have our e-media division. We are a full-service publishing company, and we are not going anywhere. So I will give my print is not dying statement right now, and then we will also make sure that that's in line with what everyone else is speaking about while we're here. So for our next video, I do want to introduce you to my family, and this is just one of the ways that on Mother's Day, we wanted to connect with readers, and Phyllis put this on her blog for all of our audience to see.
Started the business, they had just turned 2, these 2 preciouses on either side of me. And it was one comedy machine trying to start a business and raise twin boys. I had the fun of watching them swing from the dining room chandelier when I was stitching something. And as we were getting the magazine going, they were so much a part of it because we started the business in my home. And they were around me all the time, but never in a million years would I have ever thought they would be in this business.
What's it like working with Mom? It's kind of like growing up in the house with her. I think we all have a good relationship, and a lot of our work dynamic, I think, follows the dynamic we had growing up at home with her.
I don't understand why they can't read my mind. I mean, I've never grasped that concept since they were born. And so I think a lot of it is because our personalities do extend into the office. It can be comical. It can also be testy at times because why can't you read my mind? I mean, you should know what I'm thinking by now. So that's always fun too, to try to sift through what I think you should know and just automatically do versus sitting down and communicating.
No, I mean, I think just because we are so different, we obviously have different opinions and different thought processes, but at the end of the day, family is what defines us first, so we can sit down and resolve things, and it's a very amicable, decision-making process, and when Mom has to make the decision, I think we both are respectful of that, but yet still, sometimes...
They're still children.
We still defend our own opinions from time to time. Always encouraged us to follow our dreams. It was never follow her dreams for us, but always, do what we wanted to do and find our passion. And fortunately, it brought us back to the business and working with her and working with each other. So those are words of wisdom from her that I never forget.
I think that the ability to take a risk, I would say the number one, most of the time businesses that don't succeed, I think has to do with people who have a fear of failure. And here at this business, we believe that if you're not failing somewhere, then you're not working hard enough. And, so out of 10 things we try, there's going to be a couple that aren't going to work. And, really being a prudent operator is important, being able to know what the indicators are of what's going to work and what doesn't work. You need to go get a gift, apparently. I know it's coming.
I got on my Mother's Day ring from years ago, so you know.
Yeah. I'm glad you reminded me of it, actually.
Oh gosh, the Mother's Day, they were born right before Mother's Day in 1981. And it was overwhelming to look in that little bassinet and see 2 4-pound babies. And that was my best Mother's Day, because that's what I'd always wanted, was to be a mom.
And that's what she is our mom first. So how many of you are in family businesses or generational businesses in this room? How many publishing companies started? There's a lot, and not just publishing, any sort of organization. And it's something that in our family, we want to connect first with our audience. And I think that's kind of the first dialogue that we have with our editorial and brand team members at Hoffman Media is, are you connecting with the audience? And we encourage our editors and we encourage our team members to make posts on social media accounts and blogs that mention their families. These are real people. The editors and the creative team members have homes that they run on a daily basis. And we encourage them to connect with readers and say, hey, I'm a busy mom. Here's what I do to get my kids out the door every morning. And that relates to the editorial product, and there's an authenticity that comes from allowing that exposure to readers. So in any of the brand building exercises that you may find yourself in, the first thing I would encourage anyone to do is the communication piece with the intended audience, and make sure there's a connection to not just the brand, but to the people that are behind that brand, because it's what brings everything to life. I do want to mention that in the creative world, this is for the students in the room, when you graduate, I'm sure you have a dream of where you want to go and work. I've heard a lot of people say, I want to move to New York. I want to work for Cosmo. I want to work for Elle. I want to work for all the magazines you dream of and you've probably read your entire life. I do have a little bit of a reality check for you. 2 of the editors that work with us, they are now at their dream position at our company, and they are lifetimers. But 2 of the women editors were editors of hunting and fishing magazines in Birmingham when they started their career in journalism. And I spent some time chatting with them before I came to Oxford just about what that experience was like. Because it's easy to identify yourself and say, oh, I'm a creative person, and you have your outlet of things that you're passionate about. But what if you find yourself in a situation where you have to be creative in something that's a little bit outside your skin? And that's where they found themselves. And there has to be an ability and a willingness to learn the brand and communicate with the audience, because truly what the creativity is an extension of the communication you have with the intended audience. So they had to connect with hunters and fishermen and find out what their daily activities were like. What are their interests? What did they want to see in the pages of the magazine? And it was their job as editors to channel that into content. So was it a personal extension of their hobbies and passion? No, not at all. And you may find yourself in that situation one day. However, there are things in place probably more now than ever with social media and surveys and blogs, and people comment and they write in and tell you. If you're listening to the consumer, you will be able to fit the creative mold for whatever the brand is you're working on. One thing that I want to talk about is creative fatigue. This is something that I spend a lot of time with in our editorial division. Our editorial team spend 365 days a year thinking about, planning, executing their brand at Hoffman Media. That's a lot of time, and it's easy to get fatigued. It's easy to say, oh, how many more turkeys can we do? I've seen the strawberry cake 3 times, because we remember everything that's passing through our desk. But here's a statistic that will put a little bit of reality in check for you. At Hoffman Media, the average time spent with each of our publications across the entire company is 2 hours per issue. So you get your magazine in the mail, and a reader spends 2 hours with it. That's it. And we publish some magazines 6 and others 7 times a year. So you take those numbers, and you've got 12 or 14 hours a year that's spent with your magazine that you're creating. So in the course of going to work on Monday and working on a photo shoot or a story idea, and you come back Tuesday and you're still working on that same subject matter, in that amount of time that you've been on one project, that's the same amount of time that readers have spent with your magazine all year long. So they are not tired of the same things that you're tired of. They actually are getting a little blip of it here and there, and they like it. So too much change can be an off-putting deterrent for people to stay connected to your brand. You've got to make sure the consistency is there, and you've got to remind yourself, these readers are not spending 5 days a week, 8 or 9 hours a day, and all weekend long with your brand. And along those lines, I'll talk about some things that are unplanned successes from things that we feel could be mistakes. And I'll give you an example. A few years ago with Southern Lady magazine, we had planned a cover photo shoot. We had selected what the subject matter was going to be for the cover based on data, historical sales, competitor data, and we had really decided on a caramel cheesecake. And we were just determined this is going to be the cover of the September-October issue. Why not? It's fall, the flavors are perfect. But when we started looking at the photography and we spent more and more time trying to get that cheesecake to look the way we wanted it to, we were coming up with a failure. We could not put it on the cover of the magazine, but we were at deadline. We had to have a cover. So we went into the editorial stories and looked through the photography and said, is there anything we can do to just put something on the cover of this magazine? It's got to go to press. So we found an image that's a basket of pumpkins. And it was probably one of the most simple images we had really ever placed on the cover. It wasn't planned. It wasn't really thought out. But I want to show you what happened. Over the next 5 years, we have pumpkin in a basket on every September-October issue. And here's why. What we viewed as a mistake or something that wasn't planned turned into one of the highest selling covers we had ever produced. And I shouldn't even say covers we produced. An image we pulled into the cover template, and it was beautiful. And so over the next 5 years, we have consistently heard from readers they can't wait to see what the basket is on that cover of the fall issue. Here's one thing about Southerners, and since we're in the South, I can say it. We love autumn weather. We're tired of the hot and humid summers, and for our company, our Southern magazines sell probably rivals Christmas when we get to the fall content. People start grabbing it off the newsstand July and August when these magazines are making their way out. And this consistency to some has been viewed as, are we gonna do another pumpkin basket cover? We're bored with it. We're fatigued with it. But as long as the sales are at a very high level, why would we turn from that and change course? Now, we're creative each year. Some of you in the room that aren't on the editorial or creative side might look at this and say, they all look the same. My twin brother would say that to us right now. They all look the same. But to the creative teams, they don't. And you can see different variations of color, different variations of styling. And to the readers, this is exactly what they expect. And the dialogue that we have with our audience confirms that to us. So there's an example of a mistake that was a creative success in the end. And so what this also led to when we started looking for SIP topics, why shift away from anything except promoting autumn? And so you're looking at 2013 and 2014 Autumn in the South special editions. These are special edition brands related to Southern Lady magazine. We used editorial from Southern Lady magazine and created magazines that capture the essence and the desire of every Southerner in the fall, and that's to be outside at this table. And you might not ever do this at your home and take a dining table into the yard, but someone looked at this and thought, this is exactly where I want to be. It's about the creative interpretation and the escape. So we're not going to change this template too much unless we see sales decline. And so a lot of people we've heard say, gosh, you're doing these things on a little bit of a repeat. And we would talk to our friends at Magnet and they would say, keep doing what you're doing. Your data is successful. And you don't have to look at competitors to try to find something else to do. Stick with what you're doing because it's working. Last year's 2013 Autumn in the South had an efficiency of 42 or 43%, which is well above our average and well above the industry standard. So we're not going to shift course. We're going to keep going until we see any indicators that would tell us to turn the other direction. This same brand has a lot of loyal readers that love consistency, because what I'm about to show you is another example of that. This is the Southern Lady Holiday Special Edition. Do you see a trend? We hear from our readers constantly that they love the collection now that they have of the wreath on the cover of the holiday special edition. So each one of them are different. We've tried the red door. We have the white door winning. We've used gold type. We've used red. We've used green. So we're being creative and we're making some changes. But our readers have told us through communication that this is what they want to see. On the cover of Southern Ladies' traditional November-December issue, we do change things every year. Lately, we've been doing interiors with Christmas trees and the mantle and the fire is lit, so there's an environment. So when you look at the special edition next to the regular issue, there is a vast difference, but when you see these year over year together, there's a definite collection forming. And like I said, your readers are not tired of this. They have 5 of these. You have 5 years worth of these. So readers are not bored when it comes to certain aspects of the brand. All right, so we also have great dialogue with readers through reader surveys. And it's an annual thing we do. This is where we gather a lot of our in-depth information. We ask readers, what do you think of this column? What do you want to see more of? What do you like the most about any of our brands? So for Tea Time Magazine, we did surveys, and we asked readers, what holidays do you celebrate the most? What does this magazine brand mean to you, and where do you want to celebrate it with tea, or tea parties, or whatever the entertaining aspect is that the readers enjoy? And they kept saying Christmas. Every year, Christmas was rating very high on the reader survey, but we kept having the slump on the newsstand every November, December. And it was so confusing because we felt like we were communicating with the audience. We were delivering something that met their expectations. And most magazine publishers will tell you the fourth quarter, Christmas, that's an easy one. Christmas issues sell better than most issues all year long. Well, that was not the case for Tea Time Magazine until we did one thing. We took small food items off the cover of the magazine and realized we should have been delivering food that could serve a crowd, food that would serve your family, food that would be a party food for a large number of people. And once we did that, these magazines have gone to the highest selling issues of the year for Tea Time. We also include a holiday special banner on each one of those. We tell people, this is the Christmas special issue that you've been looking for. Tea Time does not publish special editions for the newsstand. We do annual books with Tea Time Magazine, and that audience is very responsive to the hardback books. So for Tea Time, this is the Christmas special. There isn't anywhere else to go. And so we have now figured out the success for the slump. And yesterday I heard someone in the room ask, does anyone have an issue in January that does better than other issues during the year? And for the most part, I'm going to tell you no. January is a very tough time for magazine publishers. You've just come off the high of Christmas. We've done the best fourth quarter. We've got the revenue in, but we've got to think, what are people looking for in January? So we went through the trend of macaroni and cheese and comfort food in the food publishing space. We saw a lot of comfort food, but like everything, it's cyclical. Certain topics come and go. We just came through the cupcake craze. We're now on to the cronut and the whatever combination of bread dough you can get into a pan. But I want to talk a little bit about Taste of the South. When we talk about this January slump, we all spend time surveying readers. Like I told you, the communication is the first piece with the brand. The editor wants to deliver something that the readers want. And they all talk about Valentine's Day. It's one of their favorite times of the year. So you've got to remember, our audience is 98% female, and they're telling us, I love Valentine's Day. Well, we didn't ask the right question. They love Valentine's Day because their husband or significant other is buying them roses, taking them to dinner, and they are certainly not in the kitchen making a cake for him, okay? So we learned that lesson big time with Taste of the South. We put a lot of effort into delivering something in the January timeframe that was leading to that February holiday, the hallmark holiday of the year. We put chocolate cake, we used pink, we really spent a lot of time, what we thought, branding something that readers wanted. But we hadn't asked the right question. They love Valentine's Day, but we didn't ask them, do you do anything in the kitchen to cook or do anything for Valentine's Day? They would have told us no. So this led to a discussion about Taste of the South and its branding. This was when we got to celebrate what I call creative freedom. I wasn't putting the reins on the editorial team. I realized we had a little bit of a brand identity crisis with Taste of the South. During the cooking boom on the newsstand, we rebranded Taste of the South to be Taste of the South. And we wanted to be a national cooking magazine because it was booming. And we thought, we have the talent, we have the ability, we have a full test kitchen staff. We publish Cooking with Paula Deen. It's in the top 5 cooking magazines. So Southern Food and Southern Food, they're really close. So we're going to take Taste of the South to that same level. So we branded the magazine with Taste, and we wanted people to just see it as a great cooking magazine that happened to have Southern food. Well, we missed the mark. We're a niche publisher. We really specialize in niche topics. And what we should have been doing is creating the Southern cooking magazine that the national audience would be receptive to. And that's what we have today. So we went through an entire rebranding effort. We spent a lot of time talking to readers. What do you think about Taste of the South? What are you wanting from Taste of the South? And they told us plain and simple, we want things that are genuinely Southern. We want to go back to the Southern roots, and we want to have foods that remind us of what our grandmother made in the kitchen. So let me show you what we did the following year and the next 3 years after. This is now the highest selling issue of Taste of the South every year, is the January issue. It is the cast iron issue. You cannot find anything more Southern in the kitchen than cast iron. And most cast iron is generational. You don't go out and buy your cast iron pan. You got the one your grandmother had, and it was passed down to you. So this issue is full of stories. It's full of recipes. It's full of care, how to take care of cast iron. That's a big intimidation. We found that out through really good communication with our readers. So we now, every year, you will see the cast iron issue for Taste of the South. And we're not seeing other competitors move into that space with us. And that's where we feel a lot of confidence that we are the cooking magazine of the South. Now, there are other great Southern magazines, and we don't publish all of them. I will be the first to say that. But I will say we do publish the best Southern cooking magazine in the country, because that's our editorial mission. And that's where we spend time creating a product that readers tell us what they want. So if they want this, why shouldn't we give them more? Well, we did. Last year, we published our very first Southern cast iron book. It is full of recipes. It's actually full of a lot of the same recipes that ran in the regular issues. This is the repurposing of content that allows us to continue earning money on things that we've invested in. You heard some of the presenters earlier mention it takes a lot of money to create content. So we are all challenging ourselves daily. How do we use it and reuse it and put it into different packages that readers and the audience want? So once we published the book, we realized that we were selling that book to a completely different audience than we could reach on the newsstand. So what did we do? We took the book and created an SIP. Southern Cast Iron will be on the newsstands this month. And it is allowing us to test into a different period of the year than January and February. So as you think about creativity and not just creating content, think about where you deliver your content and how to move it around throughout the year so that possibly you have more of an impact of a subject matter that readers have told us they want. This is the #1 requested subject matter from our magazine. So we're going to deliver it. Who knows? Maybe Southern Cast Iron will be a magazine all of its own one day. We own the trademark, so I'll tell you. Good luck trying to do it. I'm kidding. But it's something we look at Hoffman Media. A lot of our magazines are all legacy magazines that came from another brand. Southern Lady Magazine is the mother brand to Taste of the South. We started a column in Southern Lady years ago called Taste of the South. Readers told us we love it. So we said, all right, let's try it. Let's test it as its own magazine. And 10 years later, it worked. We're still here. Tea Time Magazine started as a column in Southern Lady Magazine, and readers said, we love this, we want more of it. Guess what we have today? Tea Time Magazine. Cooking with Paula Deen started in Taste of the South. Paula Deen agreed to be a contributor to our magazine before she was really well known, but she was making her name in the Southern cooking space. And so she agreed to do a column in Taste of the South. We put her name on the cover of each issue, and those issues went to the top of the sales charts for Taste of the South. We then went to her and said, why don't we try a magazine? And she said, no one is going to want to read a magazine about me. We told her that when we reprinted the first issue 3 times and we hit a print run of over 1 million, that yeah, I think there's an audience out there that wants to read a magazine about you. And we're still publishing her magazine today, 10 years later. So when you look at things like Taste of the South, and we really perfected that dialogue with our audience, we then have an easy task at plucking content from the pages of the magazine to create our special editions. This is probably the easiest brand that we publish special editions under. And I'll show you a few of those that are bestsellers every year. Southern Cakes. We found out that people love baking, but not just baking, they love baking cakes. And so 3 years in a row, we have produced a Southern Cake special edition. They are bestsellers in the spring. And not just because it's in the spring, but because it touches the Easter holiday, because it touches a time of year when people start to entertain again, they get back outside, the temperatures are improving, and you're trying to get all your entertaining in before it gets too hot in the summertime. So a lot of people buy this. And then Fall Baking. This is a title you've seen from multiple publishers. Fall Baking is a very, very popular subject matter. Just thank Starbucks for the pumpkin spice latte and the craze of the pumpkin spice. Maybe next year's will just be pumpkin spice baking, who knows? But we're seeing that readers are very engaged with A, communication, B, telling us what they're looking for. And as creators and business owners in this room, if your editorial teams are not having that kind of dialogue with audience members, you may not be delivering what they truly want. And I'm not saying we're perfect. I am not saying that we have perfected every ounce of communication, but it is the first priority that I assign to all of the editors that work with me, is if you're not talking to the audience, then we're not delivering what they want. We have to know in order to do it. So I'm going to close with a few remarks about creativity. Like I said in the beginning of the presentation, creativity is really hard to define. A lot of people say, ooh, the chief creative officer, what do you do all day? Do you sit in your office and taste food? Do you write stories? And I wish I could say that I did a lot of the really fun stuff. I have really spent my time being a liaison between our circulation and consumer marketing departments and the advertising division to make sure that our editorial brands are in line with what those sectors of our business are seeing. I mentioned earlier that we are really working on our brand team members to think of content as strictly content. It is not relevant to them at the moment if it's going to run in a newsletter, if it's going to be in the website updates, if it's going to run on social media, or if it's going to be in the print edition. You know, there was a few years we had to really educate people to stop thinking about, well, is this going to be a print story or is it going to go somewhere else? Now we're creating content. And as we get into the book map and we look at how we're going to compose an issue, we see that there's opportunity to put content online, social media teas, advertising service, and it's something that as content creators we should all be open to. And you've heard a lot of presenters this week talk about what are content creators doing on the advertising side. We are doing a lot of custom content. We are working with our advertising partners to make sure that they feel at home in our publications. And here's the way we view things on a simple philosophy, is that advertisers should be attracted to our brands because they see in the pages of our magazines and on the websites content that is reaching the audience that they want to reach. So an example is Vietri, China. Southern Lady magazine, irregardless of any advertising budgets, any money spent, or any marketing partnership, they use Vietri China a lot because it fits the brand. And our consumers tell us, I use it, I love it, I want more of it. Well, that makes a perfect place for Vietri to be a part of our marketing, because it's an environment that we're not having to specifically tailor content for them, but just through the marketing relationship alone, we are creating content for them because it's already what we do. And so on a philosophy basis, we really want advertisers and marketing partners to see that our brands are a perfect alignment with their brand and that we're not having to sell you on why you should be a part of it. It should be obvious to you at some point. If not, the advertiser isn't going to have a successful relationship with us, and as a result, we're going to end up with ads that don't match the editorial product. And we want our readers to find service and value in the advertising. In closing, did you know that the following products were created as a product of a mistake. Potato chips, no one set out to create potato chips. It was a mistake, and they loved them. Cornflakes, cheese puffs, beer, and champagne. And I'm going to read the champagne creation story because I think it is very valuable in this audience. In 17th century France, a monk named Dom Perignon faced a problem. The warming spring weather caused his bottled wine to undergo a second fermentation, which filled the wine bottles with bubbles and burst them open. Instead of trying to eliminate the pesky bubbles like other sommeliers, Dom Perignon tested different grapes, processes, and vessels, eventually creating his famous champagne. So if we all set out on a mission to accept the fact that mistakes happen, but sometimes they are the reason for a success, we might all be sitting on champagne with our products at the end of the day. And this all was inspired from another magazine that Hoffman Media does not publish. Kinfolk Magazine, is anyone familiar? It's an independent publication. They just published their 13th issue, and the theme of the issue was imperfection is what they were embracing. And they talk about all these things that were birthed from mistakes. They're creative errors. The product did not turn out the way they thought, but they landed on something that was successful. So from the shoddy darning on your cardigan to the oddly manicured shrubs in your neighborhood, these flawed details are the beautifully blemished collateral of a life lived to the fullest. So make mistakes, make a mess. What do you have to lose? You might just discover the next great thing. So I appreciate your time today, and I hope I haven't gone over. I did.
Thank you. We have time for one question before the cold sandwiches get cold.
Yeah. What's your biggest mistake? Our biggest mistake? Oh, man. You know, I'll say this. Some mistakes, like my brother said in the video, that we really encourage people to really push themselves to the point that you are making errors or things don't work. It means you're trying a lot of things. So I'm not going to say things are mistakes as much as they are efforts that did not succeed the way we wanted them to. Last year, we did a test launch of a publication with Walmart on an exclusive distribution. It was called Good Sense Cooking. And the entire theory of the magazine was we're going to take these same great recipes and same great content, but we're going to put it in a model that's driven by saving money. So we wanted to attract coupon advertisers. We wanted to produce menus that were under $12 to feed a family of 4. The editorial mission was excellent. I loved it. And to this day, I still say that I loved it. But the marketplace did not receive it in the way that we had thought. Hoffman Media, like I said in the beginning of my presentation, we are a niche publisher, and we do not specialize in broad reach magazines that we kind of took on that mission with the Walmart project. And so we found ourselves a little bit out of our comfort zone, and it showed in what was an unsuccessful brand launch. So we published 2 issues of that magazine. We did make the decision to not continue because we would have been losing more money than we were prepared to invest. But we learned a lot. So at the end of the day, I don't want to say we failed, but we tested something, we learned a lot, and it's probably had a positive impact on the way we're running the rest of our business now. So I don't want to call it a mistake.
Thank you.
Thank you.